Wow, that was an amazing video. I just want to start off today by saying thank you, especially under the circumstances, and thank you, Giselle. How many people in this room have seen a Cirque du Soleil show? I would say that's 90%. Yes? Well, that video gives me goosebumps. They, for me, have inspired me for so many years. This is really an honor for me. I envisioned being able to do this a year ago in Marrakesh, and the time didn't arrive, the stars didn't align, and so to have them here today is really very much an honor. So I want to thank Nancy and Susie for making this happen today. There are two reasons why this is so important for me. Some of you may not know that I'm Canadian, but I grew up with Cirque du Soleil. My grandmother lived in Montreal, and I went very frequently, and it was a part of who I was. And being Canadian, I'm so proud of who they are and what they've done, and how many lives they have touched all over the world. But the second reason that I am so deeply touched to be here is that I am from Canada, I live in the US, but I spent 10 of the most profound, powerful, heart-feeling, emotional 10 years here in Mexico. And so to be here with Cirque du Soleil, and to be here in Mexico City in front of all of you, and to have the opportunity to introduce Grupo Vidanta is an incredible honor. So thank you. So you may wonder, what is Cirque du Soleil doing here? What do they have to do with what we do? And I'm going to tell you a story. So, the world economy. According to the World Economy Forum report in 2015, 51% of people feel that their lives are deprived. They don't have enough time. They don't have quality time with their families. They feel fear. They feel anxiety. We all know that. We all have parts of that. And obviously, the tragic events of yesterday just bring it home even more so. So now is the time more than ever where we want to share our lives and not share our wallets. We want to have joy. We want to have happiness. We want to be transported to something, but we also want to, like Louis did for us yesterday, bring us back into our hearts. Our goal today in this hour that we're going to share with you is to bring you back into your hearts and see a glimpse into these two powerful companies that have come from very different industries and created something very, very unique. The interesting thing for me when I started interviewing the two of them was to find out in the DNA of Cirque du Soleil and of Grupo Vidanta, they share many core values. They share happiness, they share a deep commitment to family, and they both want to change people's lives and reconnect them back to themselves and to their family. So it's not unusual that they formed a partnership. So I am going to invite Martin Boudreau from Cirque du Soleil. Martin has been with Cirque du Soleil for 13 years, and he is the president of the Parks and Immersive Content. And I don't know about you, but it sounds like an amazing title. 4 years ago, I had the pleasure of meeting Martin, and as a consultant, I work with extraordinary clients, and I have a very blessed career. But one of the joys for me, and certainly one of the highlights of my career, was being able to be in a room with Cirque du Soleil and talk about wellness. And one of the things, and I think it was my aha moment, was to realize when I asked him, how do you want people to leave your shows? How do you want them to feel? And he said, inspired and reconnected and feel joyful. And he went on to talk about the fact that people write letters into Cirque du Soleil. I mean, you can just imagine like Santa Claus, right? Tons of letters. And the letters are often about, I saw your show, and it made me decide to change my life. It inspired me so deeply. And a little bit later, Martin is going to share a couple of different stories. So that was my aha moment, because that's what we do in our industry. We want to change people's lives. We want to empower them to, like I think Giselle mentioned yesterday, to follow our heart, be who we are, all of who we are, and to be able to live a purposeful life. Next, I would like to introduce Iván Chávez from Grupo Vidanta. Iván is the Executive Vice President of Grupo Vidanta. And for many of you, if you don't know the company, as I didn't originally when I started to read about them, is they are a resort and hotel company, but they are so much more. They are not only owners and operators of hotels and resorts, but they are also developers and they are also builders. And when I say that, they have built over 2,000 homes, they have built lakes, they have built roads, and they have built an international airport that they not only built, but they also own and operate. So they have really diversified and grown their business. Under Grupo Vidanta, and I have to read the list, it's so long. Under Grupo Vidanta's brand, they have many brands that some of you have probably heard about. The Grand Lux, the Grand Bliss, the Grand Mayan, the Bliss, Maya's Palace, Ocean Breeze, and Sea Garden. But they're also more than that. They also own several real estate brands, all here within Mexico. Mayan Island, Central Park, La Jolla de Cortez, and Los Cabos. Iván's father is the founder of the company, and I believe you finished your 40th anniversary. Is that correct? So when I asked Iván, how long have you worked for the company? He said, well, since 2007. But I have a feeling that Iván has been working for the company ever since he was born. The other thing that I wanted to share is that Iván is the proud father of a baby boy, and so Grupo Vidanta's third generation is continuing. I want to speak about their love affair because when I spent time with them, there is truly a very deep, soulful connection between the two of them and their companies. They had a love affair that started in 2008, and they started to date. And then they decided to get married. And these are their words. They got married in 2010. And then by 2014, they had decided to birth something collectively together, which is a dinner cabaret Cirque show in the Mayan Riviera, which you're going to see pictures of. In the background as we're speaking, you are going to see videos playing of some of your properties, but also some of the dinner cabaret, so you'll be able to see some of the visuals of their show. So let's get started. I think I was coming over here. Oh, sure.
Around that chair.
I brought Kleenex, just in case. All right. So my first question is, how did this happen? How did you come from Montreal to Mexico City? Either one of you can tell your story, but how? How did that happen?
It started about 6-7 years ago. It was a Monday morning. I remember extremely well. I got a call from Guy Laliberté, the founder of Cirque du Soleil, and he said, Martin, I'm just coming back from a weekend in Las Vegas, and I met a very visionary Mexican that has a very ambitious project. Could you please go and meet with them and see if there's if this is serious and if there's real potential? So as usual, a few days later, I contacted Iván, and I went to visit him. We spent 3 days together with him and his executive team visiting 2 of their main resorts and sharing their history, our history. And I discovered, like Amy said earlier, that we share a lot of values. I came back to Montreal and I said to our CEO and to Guy, I said, I believe this is very serious. It seems like an amazing group. They have great employees, great values, and they're very committed to their members. And I think we should keep on going with the discussion. And you have to realize, with the job I had, as before being the president of that new division. I was the vice president of business development for Cirque du Soleil. So I had the opportunity to travel around the world and meet several groups, several organizations. And when I met Vidanta, I realized that there was really something special with them. So after that first visit, a few weeks later, we officially started to work together. And
dating.
Since then,
you called it dating.
Yeah, since then it's been an amazing journey.
Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, you know, our company over 40 years has developed, you know, amazing resorts in the main beach destinations in Mexico. And, you know, in the 80s and 90s, in Mexico, you could compete by just building a beautiful property, with a beautiful pool and the beach, and people would just come. You know, when it's cold up north, people want to come to Mexico. But the tourism industry in Mexico started getting more sophisticated, and as our sophistication grew, we as a company wanted to bring something else, you know, something else to travelers that are coming to Mexico, not just the beach. And so we started looking at options, and one of the things that we realized is that, you know, people wanted to do more. They wanted to create memories, you know, not just relax in our resorts and in our country in general. So I was also in a meeting, like Martin said, we were looking at plans, you know, a typical meeting, and then I see that our architects had put in a beautiful theater on our property, and they tagged it Cirque du Soleil, and this was in 2008. And so, you know, we didn't ask anything at the time, and then finally I said, wait a minute, who's talking to Cirque du Soleil from our company? And everybody looked at each other and said, well, we have one email, you know, and so then I said, okay, guys, it doesn't work like that, you know, Cirque du Soleil, to bring him to Mexico, it's a big deal, so give me that email. And I started firing away, email, you know, no response, you know, tried again, 2 days later, I was committed to getting a response, and finally, you know, going through the networks, we were able to make it. And the great thing when we met each other, Cirque du Soleil's founder, Guy, who's a brilliant, you know, mind, a brilliant creative, he said, you know what, I like your ideas, I like your projects, but we have a few criteria, you know, in our company, and aside what you would expect from a regular partnership, where they want, obviously, makes financial sense. For him, that was at the bottom of his criteria, you know, and Martin can talk about that criteria, you know, more in detail, but one of the points besides a creative challenge and making the world a better place, not just environmentally, but people that come into experience with these projects, the number one was to have fun working together. And so we really took that to heart, and we started having fun right away. But we, you know, we'll talk a little bit more about it, but the first project that came to life was Joya, which is in Riviera Maya, and it's a beautiful experience. And I say experience because it's not your typical Cirque du Soleil show. We realized early on, where we did our market studies, that people in Mexico were not looking just for a show like you have in Vegas. You know, they're here relaxing, they're enjoying the beach, and then right before dinner, there's a cool down time where people imagine after sun and margaritas, they want to relax before going out. But dinner is a very important part. So we challenged each other and said, you know, can we create a dining experience? Can we bring food together? Can we bring champagne together? And we developed a beautiful show together. So that's how we met. And I guess we'll talk about all of our projects. And it's a very happy story. And we feel a lot of pride, you know, to be Cirque du Soleil's partners in Mexico. And it's made our country a better place. It's a very important project for us. And as Mexicans, we're very happy that we're able to offer that kind of attractions.
So let me ask the question to you, because I found this really fascinating, is why Mexico? Tell me about the Mexican people and how their relationship with Cirque du Soleil.
You know, Cirque was created 30 years ago, and we are touring, as you've seen in the video, in more than 50 countries right now, and over 350 cities around the world. But Mexico is a place where the brand awareness of Cirque is amazing. It's one of the top markets in the world. And it's mainly due to the fact that on national television, they broadcast on a regular basis our shows on TV. So although not many Mexicans have been able to enjoy one of our live shows, they know the brand of Cirque du Soleil. And when I travel to Mexico, whenever I check in an hotel or when I'm in a restaurant and I give my corporate credit card that says Cirque du Soleil on it, I always have a very positive reaction from the people. It's a very nice love story between the Mexican population and the Cirque du Soleil brand. And also, I have to admit that the opportunity that Vidanta was giving to Cirque was an amazing opportunity. Iván talked a little bit about that earlier, but his father is a visionary, and it's not you know, when you think about that, after 30 years, Cirque du Soleil has permanent show only in Las Vegas and in Orlando, and you all know that those two markets are, tourist-wise, extremely big. But who could have thought that the next one would be in Mexico? And this is because of his father. And the reason why is he was doing that not only for the benefit of their resort, but it was also for the destination and moreover, the country of Mexico. Since the beginning, it was clear for us that he wanted to show the world that Mexico was ready to develop that type of entertainment and that level of quality of entertainment. And I think that's the reason why we were able to make this happen in Mexico.
And we have a little surprise at the end to announce that I'm excited about. Iván, do you want to explain a little bit about your business model? Because it's different than traditional.
Yeah, absolutely. In Mexico, resorts have really evolved, and there's all kinds of resorts. You know, there's all-inclusive, there's exclusive. I don't want to use the word timeshare, but you know, timeshare is a big thing in Mexico. And when I talk about, you know, timeshare, it's very different what you have in Mexico for that type of business versus what you see in the United States. And there's a simple reason. You know, in the US, when people are buying time for a resort, they're getting a title, they're becoming property owners. You know, you have a homeowners association that's formed, and it really acts like a condominium. And as for any of you that live in any HOAs or condominiums, you know that it's very difficult to get anything done and to even paint a wall or remodel a room or anything. And in Mexico, that's not the case. You know, resorts offer this product where people are buying time, but it forces you to have a great quality, you know, great offering, because you see the same, a chunk of your market is a very repetitive market that are coming every year to Riviera Maya or to Cabo, and you know, what you're seeing in the screens, for example, that's the Joya Theater in Riviera Maya. It's a Cirque du Soleil theater, and this is the first project that we launched together, and the reason I want to talk about it is because, as Martin was saying earlier, this reflects a stronger Mexico, a more capable Mexico of building high-quality entertainment. This theater last year was recognized as the most important construction for Mexico by the most reputable, you know, construction magazine, with over 1,000, you know, applicants that were in there. And we know that we could not have done this alone, and Cirque, you know, couldn't have either. But this is the kind of thing that Mexico allows you to do, because in our industry, you know, there's a lot of passion, you know, to build things and to serve others. And Mexicans we're very proud of our country, and you know, we're always trying to welcome people from all over the world, which I hope you've been feeling that in Mexico City, and so we wanted to work, you know, on that. So in our business, because we have that repetitive, you know, clientele, it forces us to make sure that our service is, you know, five-star, you know, beyond that. It's not just like going to a city hotel. If you have a bad experience, you never go back again, but the chances of you going back were very low anyway. That's not the case in Mexico. You know, we have a big market from the US and Canada that want to keep coming back and creating memories down here. So we make sure to address that. And
so there's a more intimate relationship with your guests.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, with today, with the summit being about building a well world, I wanted to just take a moment and speak to both of you about what you are doing to contribute to a well world, not only in what you provide externally to your guests or spectators, but actually within your own companies. And I'm going to start with you, Martin, on some of the things that you are doing to support your company, your staff.
Well, I think when you think about wellness and Cirque du Soleil, there's a few things that comes to mind. The first one, and the more obvious one, is the performers, right? We have over 1,000 performers that needs to be in great shape to perform day after day. Some of them have to perform up to 475 times per year.
How many do you have?
1,000 performers. And so they need to be in extremely good shape. We give them access to very good training, to extremely good touring condition, and obviously access to a multitude of health professionals. On the other hand, on the other side, you have the spectators. And we all know that wellness, it's not only about physical, but it's also about your state of mind. And what we are trying to do when people come to our shows is to transport them into another world, to make them dream, to make them laugh, to make them cry. We play with all the different emotions to touch them. As a matter of fact, the vision, the mission of Cirque du Soleil is to move people by touching them deeply. So that's really what we're trying to achieve. And you know, you've seen that we have inspired on the video over the last 30 years, over 150 million spectators. But on a regular year, we sell 15 million tickets around the world. So we have that opportunity to touch people. And for Guy, the founder of Cirque, this is extremely important. You know, when you have that opportunity to touch people, you need to do something with it. And you were talking a little bit about that in the introduction, but every week we get testimony from people who have seen our shows that are writing to us saying, thank you so much, because you're giving me, I went to see one of your shows, and you gave me the courage, or you inspired me to change something in my life, whether it's to quit smoking, get out of a relationship in which they were no longer happy, change job, or deal with a drug addiction problem, all kinds of things. And when we see that, obviously, for us, it's a sign that we achieve our mission. And finally, on the community side, I mean, Cirque du Soleil is an extremely good corporate citizen. And since the first year that Cirque started to make profit, because the first few years were a little bit difficult, but when they started to make profit, Guy Laliberté, the founder, decided to give back to the community 1% of the revenues of the company. And he never stopped since then. So with the growth of the company, you can imagine that it's millions and millions of dollars now that we're giving back to different causes. And two examples of that, two good examples, are the One Drop Foundation, which aim at give access to water to the population. And the second one is Cirque du Monde, or Social Circus, which is a program that aim at, it's for youth at risk, where we're trying to build self-esteem to those young people that have difficulties. And we're doing that through circus workshop. And I don't want to talk too much about that, but...
And we're going to see a video.
Yeah. you'll see a video. This is now in more than 70 countries in the world, and we started that about 20 years ago. It's a very nice program, and we'll share more in a video a little bit later.
Can you just touch on your Spark session, since so much of the theme of this summit is about workplace wellness? We saw some data on it yesterday. Can you just speak a little bit about the Spark sessions that you launched in Las Vegas, since that was really a vision for you?
Yeah, the Spark session is something that we had in mind for many years. When I started at Cirque 13 years ago, that was one of my first projects that I worked on, but we didn't find the right way to make it work until last year when we said, you know, there's a real demand for that. And over the years, people come to see our shows, and they want to get more of Cirque du Soleil. They want to know who are the people on stage, who are the people backstage, how does it work, how do they live, you know, what do they eat, how do they train. So we came up with different programs in Las Vegas where corporation, companies, entrepreneurs can go, and there's different options. You can go with your clients and spend a day doing some workshop, circus workshop, learning more about Cirque, interacting with our professionals, or you can go with your employees and do some team building activities, trying some of trapeze or some of our acts, and discover about, you know, you and your team. So this is in a nutshell what it is.
Thank you. Iván, you won in 2014 Top 10 Places to Work awards, but not only in Mexico, but in Latin America also. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the other piece that I wanted to mention was that Iván's father, Mr. Daniel Chávez Moran, is receiving next month in DC a very distinguished award. Could you share a little bit more with us about that?
Yeah, I'll link it back to wellness. You know, wellness is at the core of our company. Our mission is to inspire generations of happiness. So it's not a moment of happiness. It's not, you know, 5 minutes of happiness. It's generations. So when you make that kind of commitment, we've kind of studied what we need to do to achieve that. And so we see wellness in three big pillars. You know, number one is wellness for our people first. So because we believe that if our people are taken care of, that's going to translate into our number two pillar, which is wellness for our guests, and number three, wellness for the community. And how we do that, you know, over time we've learned what kind of drives people to feel good about themselves, and needs are different. You know, from our perspective in Mexico, wellness means something completely different, you know, to a teenager growing up in a poor beach town that is looking for a job. For them, wellness means achieving my life dream, you know, feeling better about myself, finding a career path. And tourism in Mexico, you know, is the largest employer of young people, you know, under 25 out of any other industry. And as you know, thanks to all the travelers that come to Mexico, these beach towns that are now known as, you know, Cabo and Cancun, and these big names that you recognize, have been completely transformed because of that. So people there who are living, you know, in the mountains without air conditioning, without, you know, they're 10 people to a small room, you know, cardboard ceilings. Because of tourism and because of people like you that are coming to Mexico, they're able to go on a path that allows them to work, to feel better about themselves. And over time, we've taken it a step, you know, further. So because, you know, the founder of our company, he came from a very poor background and realized what was important. You know, the number one thing and the number one responsibility we have is to make sure our employment levels are high, you know, that people are well paid. And we have 15,000 people that work in our company that rely on the decisions that we make every day, you know, to keep growing. And then you see them working with their significant other works there, their kids work there. So the inspiring generations of happiness is not just for our guests, but it's for the people that work there. And simple things that we do, you know, we send buses out, you know, to pick everybody up in the mornings, you know, to transport. Some of the photos that you've seen of the resorts, there's 3,000 to 4,000 people working there. And so these buses go out and pick them up. And And you would think that most companies that are under, that have to provide results quarterly would save money doing these things and cut costs, and it would not be a nice bus. So we pick the best buses. These are just as good as touring buses, air-conditioned. The front rows are for the outstanding employees from the elite program. They have their own bottle of water. Our busiest restaurant at the resorts is the employee cafeteria. So the meals are included. And for those that don't miss work, over time, there's a section where they have white cloth, service, and they're serving each other, and so they feel great. This helps them. And aside from that, we do a lot of raffles, we do giveaways. We need to do all of this because if our people are taken care of, then they're going to translate this to our guests. And in our guests, in our design of the properties, they're designed to give you as a tourist a sensation of wellness. And so we built tunnels underneath for all the service, areas. So you'll see the room service carts, security carts, they're all going under the tunnel, so you don't see them as a tourist at your level. And then we added a third level, which we built wooden walkways that go through nature, through the jungle, so that even if you're walking from your room to a restaurant, you are in contact with nature, and you're feeling better about yourself, and you're connecting with your family. And the third aspect, to the larger community, and that's to the award that Amy was talking about, we have two foundations. One of them is Delia Moran. It's named after my grandmother. She was a teacher. And so we studied a model that could work in Mexico. And in our community, in Puerto Vallarta is where we built this foundation, a school wouldn't work, just a school. We needed to find a way to tap into the talent of those kids that are really motivated to do more. So something that we wanted to do is to make sure that kids from low-income, communities had the same access to all the extracurricular benefits that the rich kids have. So this is a school that was built, we have 230 children, but it's only an afternoon school, and kids have to apply, and they have to have good grades in their public school so that they appreciate that they're able to get into the school that gives them computer lessons, English lessons, art, dancing, painting, things that they never even dreamt of being able to take a moment, to enjoy, history, but applied in a different way. They all get a free meal, and it's heartbreaking and inspiring at the same time when you see these children. They're coming at 3 p.m. The first thing they do is they run to the cafeteria because it's the first meal of the day, after being in a long session of school. And so that's a model that we've been testing that we're going to roll out to the rest of the beach destinations. And also to the larger community, we also give awards for organizations that are already proving that they can fight poverty. Because there's a lot of charities out there, that they give money, to people with ideas that they're not really proven. And we want it to be practical. So every year we assemble a panel, and the people, organizations can apply. And these panels are comprised of, ex-presidents, of nations and academics, and the people that are already proving that their methods work, they get, funding. And that's linked to wellness, and that's really at the core of everything that we do, is to make sure that that energy is spread out. So that's why it's very important for us, and that's why, we're such a good match with Cirque du Soleil as well.
Can you just speak about the award that your father is going to...
Yes, well, there's two people that are being recognized, and one of them is Felipe González. He was Prime Minister of Spain, and the other one is my father, and he's being recognized for all the foundation work in Mexico. And as Martin said, and I say this not just because he's my father, but every time someone meets him, he says, I'm doing this for Mexico first. So the first time Martin heard him say, oh, Mexico needs Cirque du Soleil, he said, yeah, right. This guy's just saying it to look good. And then he heard it 100 times more over many, many years. And then not only did he hear it, he saw it in action. And he saw that we do things that are crazy. One of them, for example, the James Bond movie that just came out, Spectre. If you go watch it, you'll realize the opening scene of this James Bond movie is in Mexico City. And so that scene was funded half by us, half by another group in Mexico. And the reason we did that, it's going to have no benefit to our brand. And if you're willing to sit through the credits after 30 minutes of thanking everybody, the extra, the makeup artist, it'll say thank you, Grupo Vidanta, the trainers, and we're happy about that because that puts Mexico in another platform. You know, globally, this is a movie that 1 billion people will watch, and people may not realize how big of an impact it is because they think it's just a scene. It's just 4 minutes in a movie, but those 4 minutes, even though it's an action-packed thing, just showing the city, you know, showing those few clips, it puts in people's minds, you know, Mexico. And the premiere was just last week, the day after the Formula One event here in Mexico City. So as a country, you know, we're pushing for a different image and for a strong thing, and so the fact that the summit is here is you know, huge for everyone. So.
So we saw a lot of diversity. If you remember the very first video that we showed, the Cirque video, at the very end it showed considerable diversification of the brand. It showed museums, art gallery, it showed restaurants, right? It showed many different things. Where are you going? What's happening? What's the next thing?
Cirque du Soleil, I mean, right now there's a shift happening in the entertainment world where people want to be more participative, they want more immersive projects, and we are aware of that at Cirque, and we need to adapt to that new reality. And this is why we're shifting. Obviously, we'll keep going with the shows and everything we've done in the past, but more and more developers or people that are calling us, they're no longer just calling us because they want a Cirque du Soleil show. They want to get access to our creative team, and they want us to be part of their design team or part of their development team. And we work closely in collaboration with them to develop whatever they need or whatever they're working on. We get to look together, and it's really a collaborative effort to create great new product for the entertainment world.
So the timer went red. I just saw it. So I have one last question. We're going to talk about something that's going to be announced in about 10 days. Yes? The world tour. Yeah. Can you share just a little bit?
I can share a little bit.
So every 2 years, Cirque puts out a world tour.
Every 2 years, we launch in Montreal our touring shows that are under the big tops that you're seeing going into all those 350 cities around the world. And usually the business model associated with that is that when we launch one of those shows, they go and they tour North America, then they go to Europe, and then they go to Asia, South America, Africa. So they're gone for 15 years on the road. That's how long they last, those shows. And the next one, you know, I was talking a little bit about the love story between Cirque du Soleil and Mexico. This is real. This is so real that the government of Mexico, the tourism department of Mexico, we decided to enter in a partnership with them, and our next show coming out next April in Montreal, as always, will be inspired by the culture of Mexico. And it's about the culture of Mexico is so rich, the history of Mexico culture. So for our creative team, it was so exciting to be able to use that as a base to start that story and that show. And the reason we're doing that with them is to help them promote the country of Mexico around the world. And it's along what Iván was saying. We want to show the world nicer images of Mexico than what, unfortunately, we see most of the time in the newspaper. So we believe in the richness of Mexico, and we want to use our communication platform to tell that story to the world.
So the name of the tour will be announced, I think, on the 25th, so you can hear about it. Do we have time to show the last video? I'm getting it, okay. So Martin had mentioned Cirque du Monde, which is a program that's been running for 20 years in 70 different countries. And it's really for youth at risk. And we're going to end with you seeing the difference that they've made all over the world. It's just so heartwarming. Anything you want to add? Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for
you.
the opportunity.